like the initial stages. Right now I think we are doing really well. So we have looked at iteration, we have looked at lists, we have seen these are lists, we know how to, so let me just do a recap. Let me close, should I close all of them? No, let me open a new one. So we have said we have containers or data structures, and then we have said these data structures, we have one example is a list, the second one is a tuple, the third one is a set, the fourth one is a dictionary. We have many other types, but these are the main ones we need. And for a list, you have said they are identified by square brackets, or we can use the list function to initialize. And then you have the append method for adding an item to the end of the list. And then we have list function. So no, there's nothing. Len function. This one is used to get the number of items or count the number of elements in the list. And then you have talked about, so it's a method, so a method, then there's a function. And then you have talked about what do we call it, pop function. This one is used to remove an item or element from the list. And then I think we also had insert function, insert method. This one is used to add an item to the list. This is a method, not a function. And then we also looked at a number of others, which we also had count and many others, which you won't go through. Yeah, then we said you can use the indexing method. So indexing method, whereby you can say, for instance, if you have students equals to, let's say, James, let's say we have Mary, and then we have Gladys. Yeah, I can set say students 0, then I say students 1, then I say students 2, then I say, yeah. So if I do students 3, this will bring an index error. So this one will return Gladys, this one will return Mary, this will return James. Then if I want to add, I can say, if I want to replace, so I want to replace James with Kim, I can say students 0 equals to Kim. So we say that. If I want to, yeah, so if I want to add, so add another student, I can say students dot append. Now we say, let's say we have Ray. Yes, so we can have something like that. So this is what we talked about. If you want to know number of students, I can just say len students. So we talked about all these. So this is about list. So these are the lists we talked about. Now another thing, let's say I have one list is, let's say we have streams. So east, so from 4 east, let's say from 4 east we have, let's say let me think of names. So let's assume it's a boys school. Then we have, then here, let's say from 4 west, let's say we have now here I have 2 lists. Now if I want to combine them, I can say combined equals to from 4 east dot extend from 4 west. if I remember well, this should be it. So I print combined, it should bring that. So if I run it, oops, okay. Actually it's not like that. You just do it like this. Sorry for that. So we say for east, so if I run it, so you can see Form 4 now has it's combined. So if you want to combine, you use extend. So when I run it now, Form 4 East no longer contains 3, it now contains 5. So instead of just containing George, Lucky and Richard, it now you have extended, so meaning you have combined the two. So now we have George, Lucky, Richard, Philip and Michael. So they have been taken from Form 4 West, they have been added to Form 4 East. If that makes sense, extend, give me a thumbs up. If extend makes sense, give me a thumbs up. So extend means you take one list, then you take another one, you combine them. So they are no longer one. It no longer contains only Michael and Philip. It now contains George, Lucky, Richard, Michael and Philip. So whatever is in the Form 4 West is added to Form 4 East. If it makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. If it makes sense. If not, you can ask a question.
No question.
Alright. So let's jump into today's topic. Which is something called a set. Now, when it comes to a set, so let's come here. Let's look at sets. So now when it comes to sets are a little bit different. Let me use a new file. So we have looked at containers, we have looked at several of them. Now we are looking at sets. Now sets, unlike lists, so we can do maybe comparison. So you will have a list here, then we can have a set below. List, you said we have square brackets. However, in sets we have like that. So that's how a set looks like. And then list, here you can initialize it using a list function. But here you can use it's a tuple, sorry, not a set, tuple. So here you can use the tuple function. Not sure about that, but probably we can test it. Yeah, you can use a tuple function. So a list looks like this, a tuple looks like this with this bracket. Now, for example, if I was to put a list and then I say students equals to, then I say, let me do it here so it makes sense. Students equals to, let's say, Patrick, then I have Michael, and then I have Rose. So if I have like that, this is an example of a list. However, if it's a tuple, it's the opposite. So it looks like this. This is an example of a tuple will be like this. So with those brackets. So instead of these ones, it will now be these ones. If that makes sense, that for list looks like this, but for tuple looks like this, you can give me a thumbs up. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. Or you can say, yeah. So that's the only difference. So whenever you are looking at them, don't be surprised. So now that you know the difference, you can try exploring. So if you want to find number of elements, it's just the same way you use len. So you say len students. Then students will return the number of students, which is 3. So it will print 3 tuples. So you can see it will print 3 because number of students is 3. Len, remember, counts the number. So 1, 2, 3. If you want to get the first element, so get first element, you say students 0 as usual. Yeah. So if you want to say the second, I say get second element, so I say students 1. Want to get the last element, get last element, you say students -1, like that. So of course you have to print them. So let me add print here, print and then I have to print, then I have to print. So it's just the same thing. So 0, 1, -1 is the opposite side. Yeah, so if I run this, it should say Patrick, Michael, and then Rose is the last element. So -1 is Rose. So 0, 1, and -1. Also, you know Rose is also 2. So, but if you're starting from the other end, if you don't know the last one, you can just do -1. If that makes sense still there, you can give me a thumbs up. If it makes sense, give me a thumbs up. All right, so that's it. Now yeah, so tuples are used, I can say they're used almost everywhere. So it's really difficult to write a program without using a tuple. Very difficult. It's highly likely all the code you're using has a tuple in it. Yeah, so it's really difficult to not use a tuple. Now, so you can see how to get an element. However, a disclaimer, the difference. So here we say that a list is mutable, meaning that elements can be changed, elements can be added, elements can be deleted. You have seen that we can delete elements, we can add elements. Okay, it's not as fancy, so I can just do that. Elements can be changed, elements can be added, elements can be deleted. However, in a tuple, it's something called immutable, meaning elements cannot be added and elements cannot be changed and elements cannot be deleted. Now, you might be curious, but how come? So, like here, we saw that in a list we have, if you wanted to change, you just do as we did here. You do like this, where are you? In combined, you do this way. You change. You want to replace James with Kim, you just do that. You cannot do that in a tuple. Let's try it. I might be wrong. So 0, let's say you want to change from Patrick to James. Let's try it. I might be wrong, yeah? So let's try it. So you can see there's an error. Why is it bringing an error? It says tuple does not support item assignment. So you cannot add, you cannot replace. So item elements cannot be changed. I cannot come and do an append. I cannot come here and say students dot append. Then I say I want to append, let's say someone like Ryan. If I run this, so let me uncomment. So this one is impossible. Let's try this other one. So you can see it also brings an error. So it says it has no attribute append. So you cannot add. You cannot append. You cannot also remove. Not sure about this, but let's see students.pop. Then let's say 0. If you try this, it should not work. Ideally, oh sorry, I'm gonna have to uncomment it for it to run. If I run this, it should not work. So it has no attribute pop. So it's immutable. You cannot change it. If you understand now the difference between, so if you have a list whereby you want to change things, you want to add things, use a list. If you want something you cannot change, use a tuple. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. If it makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, yeah, so that's the difference. Now another thing, so this one cannot happen. Now let's say we have a now if we had let's say a list of fruits, I can say fruits equals to, let's say, apples. Now if I run it, if I print fruits, it should work. So print fruits. If I run it should work fine because it will just have apples. Okay, if you do a number of things, then it will, but down here you'll see apples, yeah? So forget about these other prints. So you can see we have our list. However, I might be wrong, but highly unlikely. If you're using a tuple, if we have one element, it might give us an error or not. Ideally it should. Okay, it hasn't. Surprising. Just give me a moment. No, I don't need a moment. I don't need a moment. Now let's come back up here. Here we did the number of students. We got the first student, the second one, the third one, etc. What if we just wanted to print students alone? So if I printed students and I run it, you'll see here I'll have Patrick, Michael, and Rose, and you can see the brackets. Yeah, so if I printed students, you can see the brackets. If you see that, you can give me a thumbs up. If you can see that, give me a thumbs up. If I print students, you can see the brackets, you can see Patrick, Michael, and Rose. However, when I come here and just, even if I came here and decided to print, so here it's, we are display the tuple. Now, what if I wanted to, why is it evaporated? There's something I wanted to do. What did I want to do? Yeah, so if I wanted to display the data type, I can decide here to say print type students. Now when I run this, it will display it is type tuple. So you can see here it's type tuple. Yeah. So you can see it is a tuple, it has the brackets and it's class tuple. However, for this second one, we are putting the brackets and you are printing the fruits, but it's displaying without the brackets. So it's displaying apples alone. Now, if we try to find the data type, if I say, I come here and say print type fruits, we expect it to be a tuple, but it should be a string. So you can see it's not a tuple, it's a string. If you have noticed that, you can give me a thumbs up. If you have noticed that, you can give me a thumbs up. Up there, you can see it's a tuple, it has the brackets, Patrick, Michael, and Rose. But this second one, we only had one item. That one had 3 items. This one had 1 item, and we expect it to be a tuple, but now it is displaying only one value, apples, without brackets. And then it is saying it is type string. If you notice that, you can give me a thumbs up. If you notice that, you can give me a thumbs up. Alright, now, you might be curious, but Michael, why? Now, the reason behind this, if you wanted this one to be a tuple or tuple, you put a comma. For list, it doesn't matter. If you have 1 item, it's fine. But for here, if you have only 1 item, you put a comma. So if I run this, it should now be okay, tuples and tuple. Yeah. So always take note of that. If you don't put a comma and you have 1 item, that's not a tuple. If you have only 1 item in a tuple and you don't put the comma, that will become the data type inside it. So it won't be the tuple. Now let me show you another example. Let's say we had ages, and then I say ages is, I just do age, let's say 34. Then I say print ages, and then I came and say print type ages. Now, just to show you the difference, so that it makes sense, if I run this, it says 34 instead of tuple, so it doesn't have the bracket, so it's just 34. And then it's class integer, because 34 inside it is class integer. Here it was saying string because it was string. Now if you put a comma, it's no longer a string, it's now a tuple. If I put a comma here, it will no longer be an integer 34, it will be a tuple with 34 inside. So if I put a comma here and I run it, it will say it's now a tuple and not a string. If you have taken note of that, if you have observed that, give me a thumbs up. What happens when you put the comma? If you have observed that, give me a thumbs up. Alright, so that's a very important thing. If you forget it, it becomes a problem. Now, maybe I did not mention it at the very beginning. Maybe I was moving a little bit too fast, giving you a lot of assignments. But let me go back to it now. So right now we're going to look at something called tuple assignment. Now, at the very beginning, we probably did something like this. So we said, let me clear. At the very beginning, we said something like, not the very beginning, maybe the middle way. So I said maybe age equals to 10. Then if I do age has the value 10. And then maybe we did something like name equals to Michael. And then if I did name, it now contains the value Michael. And maybe I did something like country, or let me say something else, height equals to, let's say, 1.56. And then when I did height, it's now 1.56. If you know this is just normal assignment, you can give me a thumbs up. If you know that this is just normal assignment, what we have been doing all over, age equals to 10, name equals to Michael, height equals to 1.56. If you understand that, you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, good. But now we have something called multiple assignment. So we have something called multiple assignment. It's not recommended. Multiple assignment. Now, when it comes to multiple assignment, it's something like this. So let's say I want 3 variables. So here I want to use different ones so it makes sense. So here we used age, we used my name, and we used height. Now let's do something else. Let's say you want to look at something else. Let's say login credentials. So we can have the username. Okay, let's say you are registering. So you take your username, you also have a password, and then probably you have an email. Yeah, so email and probably phone number. This is what maybe if you're registering somewhere, you probably give this information. So here, instead of doing it one by one, you can decide to do something like this. You say username equals to let's say Rose, and then let's say you put a comma. Okay, so you just do the normal thing, but instead of doing it one by one, you can decide to do it on the same line but putting a comma. So the first one, the second one can be email, then you say equals to let's say rose at icloud.com. Yeah, so instead of doing it separately down here, you do it on the same line. And then the third one, instead of doing separately, you do it down here. So phone number, yeah, so let's say phone number equals to +25411474238. Yeah, that's the phone number. Instead of doing it down here, you do it at the same line. And then now lastly, password, or what have I done? Then password equals to, we'll just put a simple one. Yeah, we'll just say rose at 123. So you can see that. So instead of doing username first, then email later, then phone number in this order, you just do them at the same line. Wait a moment. I might have forgotten the syntax. Highly unlikely. Let me see. Let me confirm in just a moment. It's giving me an error. Probably I did it wrongly. Just a moment. We're looking for assignment, iteration, input, assignment. How can it be? Ah, oh my. Yeah, I'm teaching you the wrong thing. That's something else. That's something else. That's something else. Sorry. Sorry. My bad. My bad. My bad. I was teaching you something else. I'm teaching you something else. This is not multiple assignment. So multiple assignment is the one I wanted to show you is different. Sorry. Sorry for that. Now, okay, let me just teach multiple assignment then. Let's say, for instance, we have A equals to 10, B equals to 10, and then C equals to 10. Now, you can write your code like that. So if I do A is 10, B is 10, C is 10. But now, let's say there's an easier way of doing this. So let's use different variables. So let's say we want to use X. Let's say X, Y, and Z, they hold the value 9. So I can say X equals to Y equals to Z equals to 9. So in this way, it's the same as saying X equals to 9, Y equals to 9, Z equals to 9. This is what was coming to my mind. Sorry for that. And probably the other one was syntax in C++ and not in Python. Yeah, so yeah, this is the multiple assignment. So instead of doing one by one, you can decide to do all of them like this. If I do X is 9, Y is 9, Z is 9. So that's why you have 999. So this one is called multiple assignment. So this 9 will be assigned to Z, will be assigned to Y, and will be assigned to X. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. You can give me a thumbs up. So multiple assignment, instead of doing separately, you can do them in one line. But remember, the value comes last. The value comes last. So what I was trying to do initially was C++. Now is when I'm remembering, not Python. How come? Yeah, maybe I'm growing old. Yeah. So this is called multiple assignment. However, this is not what I wanted to teach you. I wanted to teach you something called tuple assignment. Tuple assignment. Now, I might have mentioned it or not, but probably if I mention it, I say, don't worry, we'll look at what a tuple is later on. Now, a tuple assignment looks like this. So let me clear this multi-line assignment. Let me just paste it here. That was my error, sorry for that. What's happening? This is the multiple assignment. Yeah, that was C++. Anyway, so now let's look at something called tuple assignment. Now, tuple assignment is a little bit different, and it's just basically what we have looked at just prior. Now, let's say, for instance, I have username, email, phone number, and password. So let me clear this. I can decide to come here and say username equals to, let's say, Rose. Then I say email equals to Rose at iCloud.com. Then I say phone number. So these are random values, not like I remember the email. So phone number is +2541147423448, which is mine. Then password equals to Rose at 123. So I can have that. So if I do username, it says Rose, email says Rose at iCloud. If I do phone number, it says that. If I say password, it says that. If you're familiar with all these, you can give me a thumbs up. If you're familiar with these, you can give me a thumbs up. How to do that? Okay, good. Now, another way you can do it, I will not use the same variables. I'll be using age, name, and height. So instead of doing them one by one, you can decide to do something called a tuple assignment. So you come and say age, comma, name, comma, height equals to, so the age is, let's say 45, name is Kim, then height is 1.65. So let's say those are the values. This is what we call tuple assignment. So this is the tuple assignment. So basically, we know that I haven't told you that, but I'll tell you later. This is a tuple. Okay, let me say so. This is a tuple. We'll see on why where that comes about. So this is a tuple. So basically what will happen, 45 will be given to age, Kim will be given to name, and 1.65 will be given to height. I repeat, 45 will be given to age, Kim will be given to name, and 1.65 will be given to height. So if I come here and say age, it will be 45, name, it will be Kim, height will be 1.65. So in the same way, if I was to do above here, it will be username, comma, email, comma, then phone number, comma, then password, then equals to now the value. So I say Rose name, then the Rose at iCloud, and then I come to my phone number plus 25411474238, and then I come to password, which is Rose at 123, Rose at 123. So you can see that. So this is the same way. This code is equivalent to this code up here. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up that those two codes, they're the same. Yeah, so one is called normal assignment or just assignment. The second is called tuple assignment. So meaning you take everything on the right, give to the left. I think I was confusing it in the one in C++. Yeah, I think I was confusing the one in C++. So the one for C++, the one I was trying to showcase is probably something like this. Yeah, so this is the C++ probably I was trying to write. Yeah, now it clicks. So this is the relevant piece of code. Alright, so this is the tuple assignment. Now, now that you know what a tuple is, I want to finish tuples today because it's fairly simple. Let's experiment here. So here you see we have number one, so we know, let's put some rules. So number one, we know that when we have a single element, we must add a comma before the closing bracket. So we know that. And number two, we know that, okay, this is what we're going to know right now. If I remove these brackets, okay, it will bring an error. Maybe not. Let's see how it goes. So if I run this, let's see how it goes. It might bring an error or not. Yeah, it does not bring an error. So this one is also a valid tuple. Let me put it somewhere fresh so that you can see it well. If I came here and say students equals to, let's say Rose, Patrick, and Michael. If I had something like that, if I print students, it should show it's a tuple. Yeah, so you should see it's a tuple. And then if I print type students, it should show it's also a tuple. So when I run this, it should say, so let me save, then I call it something random. It should say Rose, Patrick, and Michael. So we know it's a tuple. And then on this other hand, we also know it's a tuple because we have displayed the class. Now, once you have done that, if we came and removed these ones, so I'll write here print, we have removed the brackets. If we came and did that, it will work the same way. So you can see it's still Rose, Patrick, and Michael, and you can see it's class tuple. So if you have observed that, give me a thumbs up. That way, whether we have the bracket or not, as long as they are comma separated, it's a tuple. If you have seen that, give me a thumbs up. don't think too much. Yeah, we'll reach to tuple assignment in a few. Yeah, so you have observed that if we have it like that, it's a tuple whether you have the brackets or not, whether you have the brackets or not. That is a little bit very important. So observation number two, we can come here and say brackets are not mandatory, or you can say that for affirmatives, brackets are optional as long as the elements are comma separated. So that's number two. So whether we have the brackets or not, it doesn't matter. As long as they're comma separated, then it becomes a tuple. However, I don't think you can come here and say something like this. So I don't think you can come here and do this. You cannot just leave a comma hanging like that. Oh, you can. Amazing. Yeah, okay. We know that a comma indicates a tuple. Yeah, so if you put a comma, it shows the tuple. If you remove the comma, it's now a string. So if I run it, it's now a string. If I put a comma, it shows a tuple even without the bracket. So this is valid syntax. Yeah. So if also that makes sense, why with the comma it's a tuple and without the comma it's just a string, you can give me a thumbs up. If you also understand that from what you've explained, you can give me a thumbs up. If you understand that, you can give me a thumbs up. With the comma it's a tuple, because remember, normally I'll come here and just put brackets. This is a tuple. So this is a tuple. And if I remove the comma, it's a string, because when you have one element, for it to be a tuple, you have to put the comma there. So what happens is I've just removed the brackets. So it's still a tuple. We said anything with a comma, it's a tuple. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. Makes sense? You can give me a thumbs up. Alright, so small things. Okay, if you are taught in a rush, and a crash course, maybe you won't know, and you can make some few mistakes. You think the code is okay, but then it's not okay, then the spaceship crashes and we don't get to Mars. So at least now we know. So that's how it works. Now, whatever we had seen about tuple assignment is something called tuple unpacking. Okay, so we have already observed this, so let me copy it for your sake. And then let me copy again without that, and then I do without the comma like that, and then I do the other one. So these are strings because they don't have the comma, and these ones are not. These are tuple because they have a comma. So take note of that. Now, before we move further, perhaps you can give it a try. You try everything that we have done here, nothing new. So you just create a tuple of your own. You try to get elements out of it, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so you can share your screen. You just give it a try. You can use fruits, you can use countries, whatever you wish. And then I'll come and explain tuple assignment and tuple unpacking. Then we do a recap. Then I think we'll be done with tuples. We won't be looking at them anymore. You can share your screen. I'll also pause the recording. Stop or pause. See the pause button. Alright. So I want you to create a tuple. So let me just put the instructions here. Create a tuple of, let's use fruits. So create a tuple of fruits. Tuple, let me look for the right spelling. Tuple. Pronunciation.
tuple,
Yeah, it's a tuple. So you can create a tuple of fruits. Then you show me how to get the number of elements. So create a tuple of fruits. So maybe 4 fruits or 3 or 5, whatever you wish. Good. Okay, good. Display it. Then you now display the first element, the second one, the last one. Just experiment. Good. You can now display, go to the next line, display the first fruit, the second fruit, like that, using indexing like they did for lists.
I'll cover the expenses. Mommy.
So now display the first fruit. You display fruits in general, display the first fruit using indexing 0, 1, like that, the flow. No, 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 no. That's not right. Let me show you. Okay, let me just direct. So write fruits, print fruits, print fruits, print then fruits. then square brackets 0. Then you run. So that's the first element, what I'm talking about. So run it, let's see what you have. Okay, good, apple. Now display the last fruit. Display the last fruit. Display the last fruit. Okay, good, good. Now I want you to create another tuple for counties, but now I want you to have one county, only one. So a tuple for counties, but only one county. Tuple for counties, but only one county. Then you print it. Run it. Okay, good, good. Now create a tuple without the brackets. Without the brackets, try one. Maybe for, let's say, universities or something. Create a tuple, but now without the brackets.
Stop treating me like merchandise.
Create a tuple without the brackets. Without just using the commas, but not without the brackets. Create a tuple without using the brackets. It can be anything. It can be schools, universities, countries, something of that nature. Ministries, even counties is okay. Then display it.
Like that. And until Tom and me and Sylvia buy one, I'll get two to a bargain. Let me introduce myself. I'm ready.
Okay, good, good. So that's good. Now, you can share your screen. We look at one more thing about tuples. Then we proceed. All right. So now that we understand what tuples are, we know they're not very different from lists. The same operations you can do on a list, you can do on a tuple, except you cannot add, you cannot change, you cannot delete. We know there's something called immutable. So the next time you're told or you're asked what does immutable mean, it just means that it cannot change. So that's what it means. Once initialized, it cannot change. Now, we have also looked at tuple assignment, but we have not really understood it. Okay, we have understood, but now what's the mechanics behind it? Let me first copy it before we forget. Let me paste it here. So let me just put it there. Now, the next thing you're going to look at is something called tuple unpacking. Tuple unpacking. So we've already seen these. So we're going to look at something called tuple unpacking. Now, we have seen that if I have let's say something like students, and then I say something like we'll put the brackets for readability. So as much as you cannot put the brackets, let's just put them for it to become better. So if I come here and say something like James, then I come here and say Mary and Rose. If I do that and I print students, students is a variable that holds the tuple that you have seen there. So you can see it will have, okay, where is it? It will have James, Mary and Rose. However, if I came here and said something like now this is the real tuple unpacking, then I came here and say student 1, student 2 and student 3, then I came equals to, then I say James, Mary and Rose. If I did that, let me expand this on this side. If I came here and printed student 1, there's something wrong here, that one. If I came here and say print student 1, then I came and said print student 2, then I came here and say print student 3, it will print James, there's something wrong. I need a comma, okay. If I run this, student 1 will be James, student 2 will be Mary, student 3 will be Rose. So what happened? James was given to student 1, Mary was given to student 2, and Rose was given to student 3. Yeah, so that's what happened, just like we said. So we can conclude here and say,
I can't see your screen.
all right. Let me reshare.
It's not.
What about now? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Try rejoining, just try rejoining.
Little Mew.
Now I can see it.
Today, a big shot is coming to school. Principal specific.
So here we have students, you have James, Mary and Rose. So when you print students, it shows that. But now, when we do this, it's something called tuple unpacking. So whatever we saw in tuple assignment. So James is given to student 1, Mary is given to student 2, and Rose is given to student 3. So when I do student 1, student 1, student 3, it will print James, student 2 is Mary, student 3 is Rose. So we can come here and say what we called tuple assignment is simply tuple unpacking. So it's like you have a container, then you're unpacking one by one. So the first one is given to this one, you're unpacking the second one, you're unpacking the third one. That's how you have Rose, James, Mary and Rose. Now let's say you had something like, what if we tried something like this? Let's say we have fruits, and then you say equals to, and then you say something like apples. Okay, let's say fruit 1, then let's say fruit 2. Then I have apples, I have mangoes. Let's say I have mangoes, Now if I run this, it should work fine. Yeah, so you can see I have to print them. So I'm gonna say print front 1, then I print front 2, print front 2. If I run these, it should work fine. So it will say apples, and then we have mangoes because we have 2. So apples is given to fruit 1 and mangoes is given to fruit 2. So we have done tuple unpacking. So we have unpacked the tuple. Then another example. Now what if we did not have 2 fruits? Let's say we had 3. I come and say, let's say oranges. If I have 2 variables on this side and 3 values, what happens to the third one? If I run these, it should do what should give me an error. So it says, it comes and says too many values to unpack. So it expected 2, but you gave 3. So you can see here it expected 2, but now you gave 3. So it says value error, too many values to unpack. So we can come here and conclude. We can come here and conclude. In tuple unpacking, when the number of items, the number of variables on the left are more than 1 but less than the number of elements, value error is raised. Value error is raised. And maybe I can copy these exact errors so that you can see. So you can see example. This is an example of value error. So you can see it says too many values to unpack. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. If now here you can see if it's 1, the whole tuple will be given to students. However, if it's more than 1 but now it does not match the number of elements here, it says too many values to unpack. So it says you have fruit 1 and fruit 2, but here you can see you have more than 1 element. So it expected 2, only apples and mangoes, but you added oranges. So meaning you have more values than the variables to assign to. If that makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. If it makes sense, you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. That is very important. Another problem can be giving on the other hand. So let's say let's forget fruits for a moment. I want to be diverse so that I don't confuse anyone. So let's say for instance, I have countries. So I say country 1, then country 2, then say country 3. But now in the countries, let's say the following countries. I have Kenya and Tanzania. Now here when I print, this should not work. So let me comment this section. Let me comment this section because does not work. So I can say here this code will not work because number of items does not match number of variables. So now for the second one, we expect an error. So let's just continue country 1. Then we have country 2 and then country 3. If we run these, you'll see you'll have sorry, I think there's an error somewhere else in line 1. What's not happening? 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. What's wrong? Cannot see any error. 157 is like 157. I can't see any Unicode. Must be a bit mad or not. Let's see. Okay, there's some Unicode that I cannot see. It's a UTF error. Let's see. Alright, so let's do away with line 1. So it says truncated, blah blah blah, you escape. The problem is this file, so let me escape it twice. Let me run it again, it should work fine. Okay, so you can see here it says value error, not enough values to unpack. So you have 3 variables, but now the values are 2. So it says not enough values to unpack. So not enough values to unpack. Not enough values to unpack. So if you have observed that if you have less or if you have more, it becomes a problem, except when you have 1, give me a thumbs up. If you have only 1 variable, all of it will be given to that variable. If you have 2 and here there are 3, it brings a problem. If here there are 3 and here there are 2, it brings a problem. If you have seen that, give me a thumbs up. If they do not match, you can give me a thumbs up. Yeah, so that is tuples for us. So that's tuple unpacking. It will become very, very handy at some point in time. Extremely handy at some point in time. So time is almost up. Time is almost up. So that's it for us. That's it for us. Now, so you know tuple doesn't have to have these brackets. So I can write the same code by removing this. You know that already. So if I run this, it will work fine. So if I run this, it will work fine. So James will be given to student 1, Mary to student 2, and Rose to student 3. So tuple unpacking, the same thing we have learned, but now we are calling it tuple assignment. So you can do assignment in this way. So it's just different concepts coming in together. Now there is a way to handle this too. However, it's highly unlikely we'll look at it with you because it's beyond the scope. Something simple, yeah, it's something simple, but I don't think we'll be looking at it with you because maybe it's something we called advanced Python. It's not as advanced as it sounds, but yeah, we can call it advanced Python, whereby you can put a star here. So if I put a star here, this code should work fine. We should not get an error. So if I run this code, should work fine. Or not. Sorry, it should be on the other side. So if I run this code, should work fine. If I run this code, should work fine. Yeah, so the code works fine, doesn't bring an error. So we won't be learning that with you, highly unlikely. So that's it for today. We have looked at tuples. We have seen how tuples work. We know you cannot add values, you cannot delete. So they're important when you're not changing anything. Otherwise, you use a list. So when you want to change a few things. Now, in the next class, we'll be looking at dictionaries. So you can practice on lists here and there. I don't think there's anything to practice per se. Maybe whatever we have learned. Yeah, so in the next class, we'll be looking at dictionaries. Dictionaries are very, very important, just as tuples are. You can read ahead if you want to do so. Okay, so cheers and let's meet in the next class. Unless you have a question, of course. All right.